My name is Samantha Green. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed I was good at building stable foundations. Projects, deadlines, budgets, people, I could keep all of it steady. I just never realized how blind I was to the cracks forming in my own relationship. Daniel and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for the last 6 months. On paper, we were the couple everyone envied. My career as a lead project manager gave us financial stability, and he brought warmth, creativity, and spontaneity into my life. That's what I told myself anyway. Our apartment lease was under my name, as were the utilities, the car he drove, and even our joint phone plan. We agreed to it when we moved in. My credit and income were stronger, and Daniel always said he appreciated how I took care of the boring adult stuff. I thought we were a team, but every now and then there was one subtle tremor in the structure, his best friend, Leah. They'd known each other since college. Inseparable, intense, almost fused at the hip, in a way that made my stomach tighten even when I tried to rationalize it. She had a key to our apartment. She came over unannounced. She called him for advice while he and I were still in the middle of a disagreement, whispering to him in the hallway like I was the outsider. Anytime I voiced discomfort, Daniel would smile gently and say, "Samantha, it's not a big deal. Leah's basically family. You don't need to be jealous." Jealous. That word always felt like a dismissal slipped between us like a knife. And so I trusted him. Or maybe I trusted the version of him I wished he was. Last Wednesday, I woke up with the unmistakable ache of a real flu, the kind that settles into your bones and drags you under like wet cement. By Friday, I was barely able to stand. My temperature sat at 103 degrees, waves of heat radiating from my skin as if I were burning from the inside out. Every muscle screamed. Even the light hurt. That Friday night also happened to be the concert Daniel and Leah had been waiting for months. Their favorite band. Sold out tickets. Something they'd talked about nonstop since spring. I told him to go, of course. I tried to smile through chapped lips and fever haze. "You two have been planning this forever. I'll be fine. Just maybe check on me before you leave?" He kissed my forehead quickly, a brief, distracted gesture, and went to get ready. But by 5 p.m., my condition had worsened. My heart thudded in my chest. My breathing felt shallow. I called him, voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, can you pick up the stronger fever reducer? The one I showed you?" There was noise behind him. Laughter, music, Leah's voice. He sounded energized, electric, somewhere else entirely. "I can't," he said lightly. "Leah and I already left work early to get ready at her place. The traffic's insane. I'd never make it back in time if I turn around." I closed my eyes, pain pulsing behind them. "Okay," I whispered. "Then, before you leave, can you fill up my water and maybe text me when you're heading home?" There was a pause, a hesitation, a shift. "Samantha." His tone changed, soft but evasive, the kind of tone people use before delivering something cruel wrapped like a favor. Leah and I were actually thinking of getting a hotel room downtown after the show. I felt the world tilt. A coldness, sharper than any fever, slid down my spine. "A hotel?" I repeated. "It'll be late," he rushed to explain, "and catching a cab back will be a nightmare. This is easier." Easier for him, convenient for him, comfortable for him. Meanwhile, I lay on the couch, soaked in sweat, trembling, unable to even sit up without seeing black dots. "Daniel," I said softly, "I have a high fever. I'm home alone. I need you to come back tonight." For a moment, I hoped, foolishly, that this was the part where he'd remember he loved me, or that I existed at all. Instead, he sighed, a long, annoyed, tired sigh. "Sam, I get that you're sick, but I can't let Leah down. She's been waiting for this night for months. I promised her we'd stay out. It's one night. It's one." One night. One night was all it took to expose the truth. There was no softening, no concern. No, "I'll check on you after." Nothing. Just his priority. Spoken out loud. Undeniable. "I see," I said, my voice empty, drained of anything human. He exhaled in relief, mistaking my silence for acceptance. "See? Thank you for understanding. I didn't want to make this a big deal. I'll see you tomorrow." And he hung up, just like that. For a long time, I didn't move. The fever burned through me, but there was another heat beneath it. The rising realization that I was alone in this relationship, that I had always been alone, I'd just refused to admit it. My fiancé, the man I thought would be my partner, my eventual husband, my safe place, chose a concert and a woman who wasn't me. What struck me hardest wasn't even betrayal, it was clarity. A clarity so sharp it cut through every ache in my body. The structure of our lives, the home I paid for, the routines I built, the foundation I thought was solid, was nothing more than scaffolding. Daniel leaned on while offering nothing to support it. A single fever, a single request for compassion, and he revealed the truth. He had no intention of choosing me, and I finally stopped choosing him. The decision came quietly, not with anger, not with tears. Just a clean, cold resolve. I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. I would make a final one. And by the time Daniel returned to the apartment, his life, the life he built on my back, would be gone. Adrenaline is a strange thing. One minute I was melting into the couch cushions, shivering under a thin blanket, my skin burning and my teeth chattering. The next minute my body felt oddly weightless, like someone had flipped a switch in my brain from victim to execution mode. I swung my legs over the edge of the couch. The room spun. Black dots crowded my vision. I waited, breathed, counted to 10. Then I stood. The apartment looked different that night. It wasn't home anymore. It was a storage unit. A carefully staged life, stacked with reminders of how much I had invested, how much I had carried, how much I had been willing to overlook for somebody who would get a hotel downtown with his best friend instead of coming home. My name was on everything. The lease, the car loan, the phone plan, the utilities. His name existed only on the mail slot and the framed photos. I realized with a bitter little laugh that leaving wouldn't break anything legally. It would just turn off the power to his fantasy. I pulled out 3 large suitcases from the back of the closet, the ones we had bought for future trips we never took because his schedule with Leah was always more flexible than ours. Each zipper sounded loud in the quiet apartment. I started in the bedroom. Every shirt I folded felt like I was erasing a version of myself. The version that tried so hard to be understanding, flexible, chill. The version that swallowed discomfort every time Leah curled up on our couch, hogged the blankets during movie nights, or casually slipped into our plans like a permanent third. I took my clothes, my shoes, my jewelry, my work laptop from my nightstand. I left the shirts he loved but never paid for. The hoodie he constantly stole from me could stay draped on the back of the chair like a forgotten skin. He could keep the expensive cologne I'd bought him last Christmas, the one he'd worn tonight for the concert. The small picture frame on my nightstand caught my eye, the one where we stood on a beach 2 summers ago, his arms slung around my shoulders, Leah in the background doing bunny ears behind us. I picked it up. For a moment, my chest tightened. I remembered the way he laughed that day, the way I believed this was what building a life felt like. Crowded, messy, warm. Then I turned the frame over, slid out the photo, folded it twice without looking, and dropped it into the trash. I wasn't sentimental anymore. Sentiment had gotten me here. In the living room, I methodically unplugged everything I'd bought. The TV, the sound system, the tablet we shared for streaming, the gaming console he loved so much. That was mine too. Purchased on my card during Black Friday. Each cable wrapped carefully, each device padded and placed into a box. You'd think anger would make you sloppy. For me, anger made me meticulous. By the time I was done, the apartment looked strange. Not empty, just hollow, like a stage after the actors had left. I could feel my pulse in my ears. My skin burned hot and then icy cold. My body was clearly begging me to lie down. I sat at the kitchen table, wiped a bead of sweat from my forehead, and opened my laptop. If I stopped now, I knew I wouldn't have the strength to finish later, and I didn't want to risk waking up tomorrow and talking myself out of this. First, the phone plan. Daniel's line was on my account. I had added him when we moved in together, telling myself it was simpler. The representative on the line was polite, efficient. "I'd like to suspend one of the lines on my plan," I said, my voice calm. "Of course, ma'am. May I ask why?" "Lost or stolen device," I replied. The words rolled out smoothly. I didn't feel guilty. Let him experience what it feels like to open your mouth and have nothing waiting on the other end. Within minutes, his number went dark. Leah wouldn't be able to text him updates, memes, late-night emotional rants. He wouldn't be able to call me in the middle of the night demanding explanations or tears. Next, the credit card. When we got serious, I'd requested a supplementary card for him on my account. A trust-building gesture, I'd told myself, a way to show I saw him as a partner. "I need to report a supplementary card as stolen, please," I told the agent. "Do you suspect fraud?" I thought about the word fraud. about promises made and broken, about one-sided loyalty disguised as love. Yes, I said quietly, I do. The card was deactivated instantly. No more brunches on me. No more spontaneous purchases he forgot to pay back. No more hotel rooms after concerts charged to the woman at home sick with a fever. I opened our shared streaming accounts next. Netflix, Hulu, music subscriptions, gaming services. Each password I changed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. A severing of invisible threads, tying him to my labor, my money, my patience. By the time I finished, the headache pounding behind my eyes felt like a drum. But I wasn't done. But my mind was sharper than it had been in months. The email to the landlord was simple, professional, and painfully detached. Subject 30-day notice to vacate Unit 4B. I stated my full name, the only one on the lease. I confirmed I was providing formal 30-day notice as required. I attached the signed termination form and, with a few clicks, scheduled the transfer for the final month's rent from my account. The landlord replied quicker than I expected. Got it, Samantha. Sorry to see you go. Let us know if you need anything during move-out. I stared at the message. You're not just seeing me go, I thought. You're watching him lose something he thought he was entitled to. The apartment was legally mine to walk away from. He was just an occupant, a guest who never realized his stay was contingent on respect. I closed the laptop and just sat there for a moment, breathing heavily, feeling sweat gather at the base of my neck. The fever pulsed, but beneath it, a strange peace settled. This was happening. I wasn't just fantasizing about leaving like I had after so many smaller arguments. I was actually doing it. There was only one thing left. The kitchen counter was bare now. Only a single, useless key sat there. The spare Daniel kept for himself. The one I wouldn't be needing anymore. I found a plain piece of paper. No dramatic stationery. No long letter. No explanations he would twist into arguments. I wrote, hand steady. Hope the show was worth it. Go be her priority. I read it once. It said everything. I placed the note beside his key. For a second, I imagined his face when he returned with Leah, laughing and buzzing from the concert, only to walk into the echo of his own choices. No TV humming, no lights set to his preferred dim, warm tone, no Samantha asleep on the couch, waiting to forgive him. Just absence. The absence he chose when he decided my fever was less important than her disappointment. I took my own key off my ring, feeling the weight of it before slipping it into my pocket. I'd return it later to the landlord or keep it as a reminder. I wasn't sure yet. All I knew was that I would not be using it to walk back in. Dragging the suitcases to the door nearly finished me. My vision blurred at the edges. My arms shook. But when I opened the door and took that first step out of the apartment, the air in the hallway felt different. Lighter, sharper, honest. I didn't look back. In the parking lot, the car Daniel drove, my car, my loan, my insurance, sat where he'd left it that morning. I didn't touch it. Let him figure out what it means to lose access to someone else's resources. I called a rideshare instead and gave the driver my parents' address. As the city flew past outside the window, lights smearing into streaks, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. Not hope, not yet, but something close to it, an empty space where hope could eventually live. When I arrived at my parents' house, my mother opened the door, eyes widening at the sight of me, pale, sweating, dragging suitcases in the middle of the night. Samantha, oh my God, honey, what happened? I stood there for a heartbeat, the words lodged in my throat. Then, quietly, I said the simplest version of the truth. I'm sick, and I finally realized he isn't coming home. She didn't ask any more questions. She just wrapped her arms around me, steady and solid, and led me inside. I slept in my old bedroom that night, wrapped in blankets that smelled like laundry detergent and safety, while somewhere across the city, Daniel cheered under flashing stage lights, completely unaware that the life he took for granted was dissolving beneath him. He thought this was just another night out. He had no idea it was our last one. I expected the silence to last longer. After I left the apartment, after the note and the suspended phone line and the canceled card, I imagined Daniel would party the night away, blissfully unaware. I imagined him stumbling back into the apartment sometime mid-Sunday, laughing with Leah, bragging about how freeing it felt to escape responsibility for one night. But consequences don't wait for people to be ready. They land exactly when the truth demands it. By Sunday afternoon, around 1 p.m., my fever had finally broken. My pillow was damp. My skin was clammy but cool. I felt like a wrung-out towel. exhausted but alive. That's when the first email arrived. Subject: Where are you? Hey, I just got back to the apartment. It's empty. All your stuff is gone. My key isn't working. Did you change the lock? Call me. Daniel. I read it once. There was a dull, distant satisfaction in the calmness I felt, like the surgeon who knows the operation went cleanly. 1 minute later, I watched his name pop up again. Subject: Sam. Seriously? Your phone's off. I'm using Leah's just to email you. Everything's locked. The landlord posted something on the door about a termination notice. WTF is going on? Call him and fix this now. Daniel. Fix this. Not, are you okay? Are you safe? Do you need anything? No, just the same old story. Me as the cleanup crew for his choices. I didn't reply, but the quiet was delicious. Hours later, around 10 p.m., the real storm arrived. Subject: Please talk to me. Okay, I get it. You're mad. I'm sorry, all right? I know I shouldn't have stayed at the hotel. But this? Canceling the lease? Turning off my phone? Cutting off my card? I have nowhere to go, Sam. My card was declined at brunch. It was humiliating. We need to talk. Please. I made a mistake. Just come home. Daniel. I stared at the final sentence. Just come home. Home? The place where he left me sick, alone, and dismissed? No. He wanted me to return to the role he had assigned: caretaker, provider, emotional buffer, human wallet, silent shadow. And suddenly, I understood something deeply. His panic wasn't about losing me. It was about losing the life I gave him. I closed the email without replying. Then I blocked his address. On Monday morning, I woke to a notification from social media. A private message from a name I didn't recognize: Samuel Hart. I almost ignored it. I had no emotional capacity left for strangers, but curiosity tugged, and I opened it. What I read made me sit up fully in bed. Hi, Samantha. You don't know me, but I saw your Reddit post. I'm kind of Leah's ex. First of all, you're my hero, seriously. And second, if you're up for it, I have information you should probably know. My heart thudded. I typed back carefully. What information? The 3 dots appeared immediately. Leah told Daniel she was going on a girls' weekend. She told me she needed space. Then I saw her Instagram stories at the concert with him. Oh. A cold laugh slipped out of me, sharp, bitter. He continued. This isn't new for her. She uses people. She likes attention, comfort, emotional loyalty, but not responsibility. Daniel wasn't the first guy she's dragged into one of her little dramas, but he's definitely the first one whose girlfriend responded like you did. I could almost hear the dry admiration in his voice. I typed, "What happened when they got back?" His reply came instantly. "They came home Sunday and found your note." Daniel freaked out. Leah tried to act calm, but she was just as shocked. When the Wi-Fi didn't work and his phone was dead, they started arguing like toddlers. My throat tightened. Of course they argued. Daniel had built Leah into this priority pedestal, the one he chose over me. But Leah? She had built him into a convenience, a tool she used when she was bored or in between relationships. Samuel kept typing. It got bad. Leah blamed him for staying out. Daniel blamed her for convincing him. She tried to leave, but he begged her to help him talk to the landlord. That's when she realized he wasn't useful to her anymore. She packed her bag and literally said, "This is your mess, not mine." And she left. I let the words sink in. The woman he couldn't let down had abandoned him in less than 24 hours. Samuel sent one more message. For what it's worth, you deserved better than both of them. Watching them implode was satisfying. If you ever need someone who understands what it's like to be used by Leah, you've got a friend here. I didn't reply right away. I sat there, wrapped in the quiet of my childhood bedroom, trying to process the mosaic of betrayal, cowardice, and poetic justice unraveling in front of me. Daniel wasn't just irresponsible. He wasn't just inconsiderate. He was easily led by someone who didn't value him, the same way he didn't value me. And for the first time since I left, I felt something new. Not relief, not triumph. Something steadier. Validation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't overreacting. The truth had exposed itself. Loud, ugly, undeniable. And neither of them could run from it anymore. That afternoon, another email slipped through. Not directly from Daniel, but from a mutual acquaintance who forwarded what he had posted on his private story. Samantha overreacted. She sabotaged my entire life over a concert. I don't deserve this. For a moment, anger simmered. Then, It vanished. Because beneath the indignation, beneath the self-pity, beneath the defensive posturing, I heard what he was actually saying. How dare she stop letting me take advantage of her? His life wasn't sabotaged. It was simply no longer subsidized. And that distinction mattered more than anything. That night, I sat on my parents' porch listening to crickets and distant highway noise. The air smelled like cedar and early spring. I knew the story wasn't over. Daniel was scrambling now, reaching for anything, anyone, any excuse to keep from looking in the mirror. Leah was gone. The apartment was gone. His financial backup was gone. His image of himself as the good guy was crumbling. He would fight back. He would try to reclaim something. Dignity, money, furniture, the narrative. And I knew the next chapter would get messy. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. I was prepared. Because when someone shows you their priorities, you have two choices. You can cry about them, or you can walk away and let them live with the consequences. I had already chosen. Peace doesn't last long when someone realizes their safety net has vanished. By the time a month had passed, Daniel had evolved through an almost comical cycle of emotions: outrage, confusion, performative sadness, victimhood, and finally, desperation. But the deeper, more serious fallout hadn't even begun until lawyers entered the scene. I had spent the past weeks rebuilding my equilibrium at my parents' home. My fever resolved. I started sleeping through the night again. I got back to my morning runs. I reclaimed pieces of myself I didn't know I'd lost. Then, one morning, an envelope arrived, addressed to me. Bold letters across the front. Urgent legal correspondence. But it wasn't from Daniel. It was from my lawyer, the one my father's colleague recommended, a woman named Rebecca Lynn, known for her precision and ruthlessness wrapped inside the politest smile imaginable. She enclosed the document she'd sent to Daniel, and reading it felt like watching a master carefully dismantle a structure that never should have stood in the first place. The letter Rebecca drafted was only 4 pages long, concise, factual, and devastating in its clarity. It stated, I had legally vacated the apartment. I had terminated the lease in full compliance with state law. All major assets in the apartment belonged solely to me, supported by receipts. Daniel had been using my credit, my vehicle, my accounts, and my property solely at my discretion. Then came the list, the meticulously itemized breakdown of every asset I had purchased. The sofa, the bed, the desk, the TV, the kitchenware, the bedroom furniture, the sound system, even the decorative pieces he always bragged about picking out. Each item had a depreciated value attached. Daniel was given 2 options: purchase the items from me or allow the moving company to retrieve them by the final day of the lease. Attached was also a bill, and his share of the final utilities, his portion of the last month's rent, the concert tickets I had originally paid for, damages for late fees he had ignored. Rebecca ended the letter elegantly. My client acted in direct response to Mr. Miller's stated priorities and abandonment of the shared household during a medical emergency. She has taken all actions within her legal rights. Then the final blow. Should this matter proceed to court, we will subpoena Ms. Leah Collins to testify under oath regarding the nature of her relationship with Mr. Miller and the circumstances of the hotel stay. Even I sucked in a breath when I read that. Rebecca didn't just draw a line. She laid out the battlefield. 2 days later, an email arrived. Not from Daniel, from his attorney, a man who clearly had no idea what he was doing. His tone was dramatic, accusatory, and riddled with legal inaccuracies. Your client acted maliciously, without notice, and intentionally rendered my client homeless. We will be pursuing compensation for emotional distress. Mr. Miller is entitled to half the shared assets as a common law partner. I forwarded it to Rebecca. She called me within 10 minutes. And even over the phone, I could hear the restrained delight of someone handed an opponent who had already lost. Samantha, she said, may I respond with full force? A warmth spread through my chest. Yes, I said quietly. Do what you need to. Her email was a masterpiece. She dismantled every argument point by point. 1, common law marriage. Rebecca cited the statutes verbatim. Our state did not recognize common law partnership without meeting very specific criteria: shared financial accounts, shared property ownership, and explicit declaration of marriage. Daniel met none of them. 2, malicious abandonment. She attached my affidavit detailing the exact events of the night I was sick, including Daniel's own words. I can't let Leah down. 3, emotional distress. She noted the irony and left it hanging in the air like a guillotine. Then she ended her response with the single most chilling line I'd ever seen written in a professional email. If your client wishes to formalize allegations in court, we welcome the opportunity. We will, of course, ensure that Ms. Collins is present and sworn in. Silence followed. Days of silence. Then, finally, Daniel's attorney wrote, "My client declines to pursue the matter further." Of course he did. The last thing Daniel wanted was his harmless friendship with Leah dissected in a court proceeding, with legal consequences attached to every question. The fantasy of innocence collapses quickly when placed under oath. When the legal dust settled, Daniel's life looked very different from the world he had curated for himself. He couldn't afford to buy any of the furniture. He couldn't afford to remain in the apartment. He couldn't afford to repair the public embarrassment of having his card declined at brunch. The last week of the lease, he lived on an air mattress, 2 cardboard boxes, a lamp he found in the trash room. His Instagram went silent. His tone with friends became scattered, defensive. He told people I had overreacted, lost it, been unreasonable. But even they began to question him when details leaked, especially the part about the hotel. Leah had been avoiding him ever since the threat of subpoena became real. And when she finally did show up, it was only to retrieve the last of her things from his car. According to a mutual acquaintance who messaged me, she told him she never meant for any of this to get serious. Then she left and blocked him. The woman he put first couldn't even look him in the eye when his life crumbled because of her. But that, I realized, was the price of building your identity around someone who doesn't respect you. You inherit their instability. Rebecca told me I didn't have to be present for the movers to collect the furniture, but I wanted to be there. Closure doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes you need to witness the ending to believe it's real. When I arrived at the apartment with the movers and a neutral third-party observer, Daniel was already there. He looked deflated, hair unkempt, clothes wrinkled, eyes exhausted, like a man who finally realized he'd run out of people to blame. He didn't greet me, didn't shout, didn't accuse. He just watched silently as the movers disassembled the bed, boxed up the TV, lifted the couch. He watched as the physical evidence of the life we built, or rather, the life I built, disappeared piece by piece. And then, as the last item was being carried out, he finally spoke. What was it really about, Sam? His voice cracked. Was it really just the concert? I turned to him fully. For the first time in a long time, I felt absolutely nothing. No, I said softly. It was never about the concert. He stared at me, desperate for the answer he'd avoided for years. It was about the fever, I said. It was about the choice you made. You showed me where I stood. I just responded. His shoulders sagged. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just nodded, a small, broken gesture, as if he finally understood something far too late. The movers closed the truck doors behind us. I walked out without looking back, because there was nothing left in that apartment that belonged to me. Not the furniture. Not the memories. Not the man 6 months. That's how long it had been since I walked out of that apartment carrying 3 suitcases and a fever, leaving behind a man who couldn't choose me, even for one night. 6 months is enough time for wounds to scar, enough time for illusions to dissolve, enough time for consequences to catch up to people who believed they'd never have to face them. What happened next wasn't dramatic revenge. It wasn't orchestrated payback. It was simply life, steady, unrelenting, and brutally fair. People like Daniel don't fall all at once. They crumble slowly, in layers, revealing truths beneath the persona they carefully curated. The first month was logistical chaos. The next was emotional fallout, but by month 3, the consequences became real. He lost the apartment. He couldn't afford to stay, not with his limited income and no financial cushion. The security he once enjoyed from my stability was gone. He moved back in with his parents, something he had always mocked others for doing. His mother posted a vague Facebook update, praying for healing and growth during difficult times. His father, according to a mutual contact, was disappointed, not because of the breakup, but because Daniel had acted irresponsibly. They were supportive, yes, but their support came with expectations. Chores, rent contributions, boundaries. Daniel wasn't used to boundaries. Worse, his reputation among friends took a hit. At first, he spun the story. She left me over nothing. It was just one concert. She went nuclear for no reason. But people aren't stupid. It only took 1 or 2 curious friends asking the right questions for the truth to leak. And once they learned about the hotel with Leah, the fact he didn't check on me while I was sick, the financial reality of our relationship, the reason I terminated everything. His narrative fell apart. Sympathy turned into discomfort, then into distance. People don't want to be close to someone who proves they can't be trusted in a crisis. As for Leah, she disappeared the moment she realized Daniel no longer provided easy comfort or resources. Their bond, the one he clung to like a lifeline, turned out to be conditional, transactional. According to Samuel, she said being around him felt depressing. She doesn't do lows, never has. Of course she didn't. Leah thrived on adventure, drama, validation, things Daniel could only give her when he was thriving at my expense. Without the apartment, the nights out, the easy emotional labor Daniel extracted from me and funneled into her, he wasn't enough for her anymore. She left him behind like a coat she'd outgrown. He learned the hard way that the person he couldn't let down would never catch him. By the 4th month, Daniel finally confronted something he had avoided for years. Responsibility. He got a full-time job to chip away at debts, a job his parents insisted on, with early mornings, rigid schedules, and supervisors who didn't care about his creative spirit or past flexibility. He stopped posting on social media altogether. The flash, the fun, the curated image were replaced by quiet. Humbling quiet. Someone later told me, he said he wishes he could go back and change things, but not because he misses you, because he misses what his life was with you. And that was the most revealing truth of all. He missed the stability, the comfort, the convenience, the things I built, not the woman who built them. It hurt to hear that, but it also freed me. While Daniel wrestled with consequences, I breathed them away. After the move-out day, once the dust and adrenaline settled, I did something I hadn't allowed myself to do in years. I took a vacation, alone, 2 weeks in the mountains, hiking, reading, letting silence heal me, letting solitude feel like a choice instead of an accident. On the 5th day, standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking pine forests, I realized something profound. I wasn't mourning Daniel, I was mourning who I had been with him, the woman who tolerated discomfort, who rationalized disrespect, who dimmed her own needs, who assumed loyalties must be earned through endless patience. I promised myself I would never be her again. When I returned home, I bought something I'd been dreaming about for years. A small house, nothing extravagant, just a quiet place with a yard, a workshop, and sunlight that warmed the kitchen every morning. A home that belonged to me, built on my foundation, not the fragile scaffolding of someone else's immaturity. I furnished it with intention. New furniture, new colors, new memories waiting to be created. Nothing carried over from the old apartment. Nothing that reminded me of a life where I was never the priority. People asked if I was dating again. The answer was always a gentle no. I wasn't avoiding love, I just wasn't ready to share the space I'd worked so hard to reclaim. Instead, I poured into myself. My work flourished. My newfound clarity sharpened my performance, and my team noticed. My confidence returned, not loud confidence, quiet, grounded confidence. My boundaries strengthened. No more apologizing for needing reciprocity. And slowly, an unexpected truth emerged. I wasn't lonely, not even a little. My life, once crowded with emotional noise and someone else's needs, felt peaceful. I didn't need a partner to feel complete. I just needed to stop carrying someone who refused to stand beside me. Every now and then, someone would mention Daniel, just in passing, a comment, an update, but I didn't feel anger or sadness or nostalgia. I felt distance, like remembering a character from a book I'd outgrown. His life hadn't recovered yet. Maybe it wouldn't for a long time. But those were no longer my lessons to learn. One evening, months after moving into my new house, I sat on my porch watching fireflies drift across the grass. I realized something simple and honest. The night Daniel chose Leah wasn't the night our relationship died. It was the night I stopped pretending it was alive. My fever didn't break the foundation. It just revealed how weak it had always been. And in the end, I didn't destroy anything. I simply stepped aside and watched the structure collapse on its own. 6 months after that feverish night, the night that peeled back every illusion, the night that forced me to see the truth with a clarity I could no longer ignore, I found myself standing in the quiet of my new backyard, watching sunlight spill across the grass. It was peaceful in a way my life had never been with Daniel. No buzzing phone, no emotional whiplash, no juggling someone else's crises while ignoring my own. Just stillness. A stillness I had earned. People kept asking me, Do you ever regret how you handled it? Do you think it was too harsh? Do you think things could have been saved? But a relationship isn't destroyed by one catastrophic event. A relationship dies in increments, in small, quiet moments when one person consistently chooses something or someone over their partner. The concert wasn't the betrayal. The hotel wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was that I was sick, fever burning, body aching, scared and alone, and Daniel didn't even hesitate before choosing someone else. There was no moment of conflict for him, no consideration, no instinct to check on the woman he planned to marry. His decision was instantaneous, and that told me everything. When someone is faced with two people who need them, one who depends on them, and one who demands their attention, who they choose speaks more honestly than any promise they've ever made. Daniel chose Leah, easily, casually, without shame. And the irony is, he didn't lose me because he chose her. He lost me because he didn't choose any version of responsibility, any version of partnership, any version of loyalty. Choosing her simply made the truth impossible to ignore. Leaving him wasn't an act of anger, it was an act of clarity. I didn't sabotage him, I didn't retaliate, I didn't punish him. I simply removed myself from a structure I had been holding up alone. He told me what his priorities were. I believed him. Finally. And when you believe someone the first time they show you who they are, you don't try to change them, you just walk away. Daniel's life didn't crumble because of me. It crumbled because he'd built it on the assumption that women, me, Leah, anyone, would always shoulder the emotional labor for him. That someone else would carry him, excuse him, justify him. When he no longer had access to the resources, stability, and support I provided, he wasn't ruined. He was simply unprepared to stand on his own. That was his unraveling. Not my doing, but his awakening. And strangely, I didn't feel satisfaction. Just distance, like watching a story I had once lived inside, but no longer felt connected to. My little house became a sanctuary. Mornings were filled with sunlight drifting through open curtains. Evenings smelled like fresh-cut grass and warm summer rain. My weekends were slow and intentional. Hiking trails, coffee with friends, reading on my porch. I relearned my own rhythms. I rediscovered what it felt like to wake up without tension in my chest, to cook dinner without wondering if someone would cancel plans again, to breathe fully, deeply, without the weight of tiptoeing around another person's volatility. I didn't rush into dating, not because I was afraid, but because I finally understood the value of my own peace. I wasn't lonely, I wasn't incomplete, I wasn't waiting for someone to validate me. I was simply whole. Sometimes when the nights are quiet and the air is cool, I remember the moment everything broke open. Not the fight, not the emails, not the legal letters. Just the fever. The way I lay on the couch, sweating and shaking, asking the man I loved to come home. And the way he sighed in annoyance, as if caring for me, just for one night, was too much to ask. That moment has replayed in my mind countless times, not because it hurts anymore, but because it taught me something fundamental. Anyone who sighs at your pain is not your partner. Love doesn't vanish in one moment, but self-respect is born in one. People think endings are explosive, that they come with shouting, slammed doors, dramatic revelations. But real endings are quiet. A phone call, a sigh, a moment of clarity so sharp it feels like a knife slicing through fog. Daniel's choice was simple. He chose excitement over duty, validation over commitment, temporary pleasure over genuine partnership. And I chose myself. In the end, that's all it was. Two people making two choices that could never coexist. He chose Leah, I chose peace. And peace, far more than love, is the foundation I will never compromise again. If there's anything this story taught me, it's this. When someone shows you their priorities, believe them. And when they choose to leave you alone in your worst moment, don't spend another moment choosing them. I didn't destroy our relationship. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't need to. I simply walked away and let the structure collapse exactly as it was always destined to. For the first time in my life, I'm grateful for a fever, because it didn't break me. It revealed me.